4:15, Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. Eagles and Redskins this Sunday, Lincoln Financial Field. Not a lot of energy here in South Jersey and Philadelphia for this matchup, which is usually not the case, and that's because the Eagles tease you to start the year. They go 3-0, and then the lack of effort was just abysmal this past Sunday in Cincinnati. Now joining us, does a great job for ESPN 980 down in Washington, D.C., and that's Kevin Sheehan, who joins us right now. Kevin, Zach Gelb, appreciate a few minutes, and how are you?
Hey, Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So, real quickly, the big story this week has been Doug Peterson on Monday in Philadelphia said this team and some players aren't playing with great effort and we could see a little bit more out of them. What's been the reaction of D.C. this week? Is there a lot of buzz to this game, or do the Redskins fans think they're going to beat up on the Eagles pretty handily this Sunday?
I don't think any time the Redskins go on the road in the division, they think they're going to beat up on anybody. I mean, I heard somebody mentioning the other day, I think it was Kirk Cousins, said, you know, the tradition of all of these NFC East matchups, wherever they are, the history, and I know sometimes it doesn't apply to the players as much as it does to the fans, but I think the players understand these are big games. And look, the Redskins have actually owned the Eagles here recently. They won the earlier game. They swept them last year. I think they won the last game in 2014. So I don't think they're taking anything for granted. And really, for the Redskins, it's a massive game. After losing at Arizona last week in a game they thought they should win, their playoff hopes are contingent on winning at least 3 of their final 4, and I think this one's one they feel like they have to have. I don't think they feel like they're going to get it, that it's easy, but I think it's a big game for them.
What was your biggest takeaway the last time the Eagles played the Redskins? It was this year, 27-20. Redskins were dominant, but like you said, it ended up being a close game.
Yeah, that was one of those games, actually one of the few the Redskins have played where the score was close, but it wasn't really indicative of the game. The Redskins really did dominate that first game. Philadelphia scored 2 touchdowns on a pick six and I think a kickoff return after the Redskins jumped out early. It was in that moment, remember, and at that time, Carson Wentz along with Dak Prescott, I mean, people were talking about the two of them vying for Rookie of the Year, and Wentz was having a great season, and even though the Eagles didn't have a lot of talent around them on offense, I personally thought the Eagles looked like they were on the verge of being a really good defensive team. I still think the Eagles have a lot of talent on defense. But that's my memory of the first one, is that the Redskins actually really played well and then had to hang on because of a pick six and a special teams touchdown.
Kevin, another big story here locally, and I'm sure it's a story where you are, was that report came out earlier this week that DeSean Jackson would be intrigued coming back to Philadelphia. You got 2 free agents at the end of the year, and Pierre Garçon and DeSean Jackson. For you, who is the preference to keep one of those 2 wide receivers? Who do you keep?
I think I'd keep Garçon. And the truth is, I mean, it's not because DeSean's been a bad guy or DeSean's been a problem or DeSean's been unproductive. When he's been on the field, the Redskins have been better. I mean, whether he catches 1 for 50 or, 8 for 88, his impact is felt each week he's available and he's on the field, and Jay Gruden would swear by that. There's a lot of talk that, Garçon and Jordan Reed and Jamison Crowder have had some of the, the easy days they've had because of D-Jax being on the field. So with that said, though, Garçon's always available. He never misses games. He blocks in the run game. He catches balls over the middle. He's also an occasional deep threat. He doesn't have Jackson's playmaking ability or speed, but he's so reliable week in and week out.
And DeSean never really wanted to leave Philadelphia. You just had Chip Kelly, who was coming in here on a power trip and started preaching culture. And DeSean, you're right, has handled himself pretty darn good in Washington, D.C. for the Redskins. DeSean, though, handling this, I know a few weeks ago he had the quote of, it was that guy who used to be the coach there who wanted me out of there and things like that. But how has he been handling all these rumors this week?
He's been great. And the truth is he's actually been so easy down here, and I think if you ask anybody on the team, is he the most liked guy on the team? Probably not, but boy, all of the discussion when they signed him, when he became available so unexpectedly a few years back, about him being a disruption and not necessarily a great guy in the locker room really has not proven out to be true. He's been fine. The big issue with him is that he's not available, all the time. He misses games. He's hurt, pretty easily. I'm trying to think of, he's probably missed 6 to 8 games in the last year, something like that. I may be exaggerating that a little bit, but last year he missed every bit of 5 or 6 games, and he's missed 1 or 2 this year. So his availability and health has really been the issue. But when he's healthy, and the Redskins can really throw the football even without him, but when he's there, they're lethal offensively, their pass offense.
Kevin Sheehan with us right now from ESPN 980 down in Washington, D.C. Let's get to your quarterback, Kirk Cousins. A lot to like last year, and then also a lot to like this year. 29-11 finished last year. This year, 21-8. He's going to get paid a fortune, probably more than what he should make when you look at some of the other quarterbacks in the league. Are there still any fans on the show that you do that are maybe a little bit reluctant still to pay him, or they have finally been won over by Kirk Cousins?
Of course there are. It's just so ridiculous to think that people still don't get that this guy is very much a legitimate starting NFL quarterback, if not a legitimate starting top half of the league quarterback. And here's the thing, for those that don't believe, look, the guy, it's not just the numbers he's putting up. He's a perfect fit for a West Coast offense. He is really good pre-snap, and he has a really quick release. He's got a lot of those things that fit perfectly with sort of a West Coast style offense. I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins would be putting up the numbers that he's been putting up in a pure drop back offense. But you look at some of what he's done here over the last, not full 2 years, but if you look at his last, say, 20-some games, this guy's done it without a running game and without a defense. The Redskins are awful defensively. They never get good field position. They never get easy scoring opportunities. They had no running game last year, and really it's a limited running game, sort of a hit-and-miss running game this year. He's got a lot of weapons to throw to, but he is, for a franchise that's proud and storied, it hasn't had a legitimate starting quarterback in a long, long time, and I think the people around here that don't get it would sorely miss him if they let him go.
I know it was a different back last time the Eagles played the Redskins, but really your offensive line dictated the pace of this game and really exposed some of the Eagles linebackers. And you see that from time to time when you go up against a good offensive line that the Eagles defense does. That's when they really struggle to win those one-on-one battles, and the linebackers do get exposed a bit. For this Sunday, what type of offensive performance do you expect out of the Redskins?
Well, I know that they would like to run the ball more consistently, if for no other reason than to really try to dominate time of possession to keep their defense off the field. The defense is really wretched right now. It is the worst third down defense in the NFL. They can't get off the field. Now, I know the Eagles right now offensively have struggled, but they could get healthy on the Redskin defense if they have the ball a lot. So they'd like to run the ball. Truth is, Rob Kelly's a better back than Matt Jones, the back that had the big game back in October against the Eagles. But it's just been more sort of a commitment. Like last week, he got it 14, 15 times at 4.5 yards per carry, but that was it. That last week was one of those games where it's like, why didn't he get it 20-plus times? Jay Gruden and Sean McVay like to throw the football, and they do that well. I think this week their path to victory is to throw the football. It's what they've done best. It's been their bread and butter. They've just got to be a little bit better in the red zone against the Eagles, and they could have a prolific day offensively. The problem is on the other side of the ball whether or not they can stop the Eagles.
And I think they can and I think we're going to see a close game. But if you look at the Eagles right now, that offense just does not have the talent. And that's just being transparent. And that's not saying that it's just an overreaction from the last few games. But this offense just is so inept from a talent standpoint. They have a quarterback, but the quarterback is a rookie, and the rest of that team is just struggling so much immensely. If I'm the Redskins, here's the formula, and here's what's going to ultimately, to me, decide the game. If you could stop the Eagles' run game and make Wentz throw it more than they want him to throw it, then you'll win the game because these wide receivers, they just can't get separation, Kevin.
No, I know that they lack playmakers offensively, but I'll just give you one game here recently. You know, the Vikings are not very good offensively either, and Sam Bradford had 2 or 3 bad games in a row. They couldn't score, and they came in here in mid-November, right before the Redskins stretch of Green Bay and Dallas in an 8-day period, and Sam Bradford threw for over 300 yards and completed 70% of his passes. And they scored 20 points in about 6 minutes. Now, the Redskins got a turnover and a couple of sacks in the second half, but I'm telling you, as bad as you think that Eagle offense is, the Redskin defense is just as bad. They can't get any pass rush, and Josh Norman's the only guy that can cover. And, guys like Bradford and even Rodgers, who was struggling a little bit, they've gotten healthy on the Redskins defense for sure.
You know what? You've made a very good point because I watched Sam Bradford in Philadelphia last year, and I never seen him play like that. Kevin Sheehan, before we let you run, let's just take a look at that Redskins schedule from here on out. They're in Philadelphia this Sunday. Then they got the Panthers at home, then on the road in Chicago, and then home against the New York Giants. So not a brutal schedule. You have the divisional games. Do you think the Redskins make the playoffs? Because you know the narrative. If they don't make the playoffs, then people are going to seriously start to doubt Kirk Cousins once again.
Yeah, and it won't be like God. It's almost like you've been listening to DC Sports Talk Radio, and it's true that if they don't make the playoffs, Kirk will feel some of that blame. When the truth is going to be that they had the worst defense, or one of the 2 or 3 worst defenses in the NFL. I look at the schedule this way. I think if they win 3 of their final 4 and they get to 9-6-1, I think they'll make the playoffs. The issue, though, is that this game Sunday is so massive in that if they lose it, they now are on a 3-game losing skid. They're going to lack the confidence. The pressure to win the 3 final games may be too much, and maybe ultimately it'll just be a case of they're just not that good. If they are who I think they are this year, at least offensively, they're going to go to the Lynx Sunday and they're going to put up 28+, and they're going to win that game to get to stop this 2-game skid, to give them a little bit of margin for error over their final 3. But I say that knowing that it's a rivalry game, it's a division game. We know in these games anything goes, anything can happen. I mean, hell, I think Vegas has the game as a pick-em right now, which doesn't surprise me because it feels that way from our standpoint. But they will come in this week desperate. I mean, after the loss to Arizona, and a game they felt like they could have won. The Thanksgiving Day shootout with the Cowboys, they felt like they could have won. This is a desperation game for them, and in many ways sort of a season saver.
In Jersey, before we let you run, as Kevin Sheehan joins us right now, I have Eagles fans and I have Giant fans. The one thing they could agree on is they hate the cockroach organization of the Cowboys. I know, DC, you guys could agree on that statement as well. Is anyone in the NFC beating the Cowboys this year?
No. Well, yeah. I don't see a rookie quarterback taking them to a Super Bowl win. I think they lose to Seattle in a playoff game, and that game would likely be in Dallas. I mean, I guess you could see Green Bay getting hot. I mean, Aaron Rodgers certainly wouldn't fear going into Dallas. But I see him in the NFC Championship game. I mean, I don't want to see it either. I mean, unless we're playing them, I don't want to see them in the NFC Championship game. But they certainly have a formula that does win in the NFL and wins in January. I just question whether or not they're good enough defensively and whether or not a rookie quarterback can actually take them to the Super Bowl.
Kevin, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
All right, my pleasure, Zach. Take care.